Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. My name is Scott Morganroth. In studio is Candy Ebling, and we welcome Lynn LaSalle back to the broadcast. And Lynn, obviously what we like to do with your Me Monday columns of the South Florida Tribune is bring them to life. And guess who's bringing them to life? That is you.
Well, thank you, Scott. It's so great to be back with you on this podcast. And I really do appreciate the invitation to bring my Me Monday to life. And Candy, great to be with you as well.
You too, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to go over again what Me Monday is all about. It's real important that everybody understands that this is something special for them. And that's why I'm proud to announce this evening that Me Monday is officially registered as a trademark. So my goal in doing that was to put a day on the calendar every week that was a day that was specific for everyone to have a schedule to put something on the calendar, especially for themselves. So we look at all these different holidays that are on the calendar. We always look ahead to them. We always make our plans around it. Hey, Mother's Day is coming up, not far away from now, and everybody's already making their Mother's Day plans. Well, that's the importance of Me Monday, because Me Monday is the one day every week that if you're not already scheduling something special for yourself, that's your day. So it doesn't matter whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whether it's an hour or two. It's a time that's designated especially for you. Because you know what? Taking care of yourself is really, really, really important. We need to put ourselves first. I know I've been through a lot of anxiety and exhaustion from years of always being last on my list. And I don't know about you, Candy, but I find that sometimes when you're last on the list, you never get to the end of the list.
That's true.
And because things keep going at the top. How about you?
That's true. I agree.
Okay, so, it's like we want to be able to get first on the list. So I'm curious, what's something that's going well for either of you today?
Well, I'd say today I got to relax. I had to go to work this morning, and my husband most graciously took over the wheel and drove me to work so I could just sit and relax. And then on the way home, he picked me up so that I could just relax again on the way home. And I know he loves to drive. So it was a win-win for us. So that was a little more extra time that I got to squeeze out of my day, that I got to squeeze husband time in, which always makes me happy.
That sounds really awesome. It sounds like you not only got to relax going back and forth to work, which you might not ordinarily get to do, but it also sounds like you both were able to get out of the house during this stay-at-home order, and you got to spend some quality time together, too. That sounds awesome.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate that. Scott, something positive for you today.
Oh, I had a lot of phone calls. Just always glad to have a voice by the end of the night so I can do these broadcasts.
That's fabulous.
Oh, yeah.
I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, my goodness. If I had to take out a life insurance policy and had to come up with a key thing to insure, I would definitely have to have my voice in my voice box, that's for sure. My goodness. Getting that 215 license was definitely a challenge. I'd like to think I learned a little something out of that. Keeping my voice after 9 million phone calls and so forth is always a good thing. You'll probably get that every Monday if you ask me that. So, unless I come up with something creative depending on the caffeine intake.
I hear you on that. I know a lot of people are spending a lot of time on phone calls and on Zoom calls with this pivot into the virtual world. So I think we all get a little bit of that raspiness by the end of the day. But I'm glad to hear that you're preserving your voice and that we're all able to chat a little bit this evening. So I'd love to ask the listeners at this point if all of you could kind of think about just one small positive thing that may have happened to you for today, or something that you might be celebrating that happened over the weekend. Every day that goes by, in spite of the crisis, because obviously we couldn't have planned that, there's always something that we get up every day that we can be grateful for. I know I'm very grateful today for my health. I'm really grateful today that here in South Florida, we actually had a day that it wasn't really the mid-90s and it wasn't seriously humid. We actually had a really nice day today. And for those of you who may be listening that are in a different state, in a different area where the weather might not be so warm and sunny just yet, it's still great because you got up today and you had your whole day ahead of you. I'm very positive. I've got a lot of great things going on for me today, including, the Me Monday official trademark. So I'm real excited to be able to bring that to everybody. I'm real excited to be super healthy and getting through my day. And I'm hoping that the audience will be willing to maybe email some comments into us. And Scott, that email again?
SouthFloridaTribune@gmail.com. SouthFloridaTribune@gmail.com. And also, while we're talking email addresses, go ahead and look up Lynn Lascelles' columns at www.southfloridatribune.com. I also go ahead and share Lynn's columns not only on our Facebook page, but also on Twitter. And in Twitter, you can find us at South Florida Tribune. And follow us, and you'll be able to get the latest updates on everything that we're doing here on Instagram as well, South Florida Tribune. So might as well make sure we share that information with everybody.
Yeah, and so if you have any celebrations that you'd like to share with us, we'd absolutely love to hear. And certainly if there's any questions that you have for me that you might like me to try and answer for you on one of our future podcasts, we'd love to hear it. And absolutely, if you have any requested topics that you would like us to cover, that would be awesome as well. So, Scott and Candy, one of the things that I really wanted to highlight this evening on our show was, in addition to what we can just get up and simply be grateful for, I wanted to share a story that I recently got to hear about. And that's Paralympic snowboarder bronze medalist Amy Purdy. She's a young woman who I had the honor of hearing just recently online on a live broadcast. And she shared her story. And notice I said Paralympic snowboarder. And that's because when she was 19, she had these sudden symptoms, went to the hospital and get diagnosed with Neisseria meningitidis. And that's a bacterial form of meningitis. And I hope I actually pronounced that right. So when she describes her story, she goes into detail about how that disease took over her entire body over the course of a day. Her kidneys failed. All of her organs started to fail. She had to get a donated kidney. She lost her spleen. And they gave her 2% chance of survival at 19. She was just at the beginning of her life and her dreams, and she wasn't even aware of what was happening to her. And when she came out of all of it, and she survived against all the odds, they had to actually amputate both of her legs from the knees down. And her dream was to be an Olympic snowboarder. And when she came out of all of this and was told that she now had no legs, she really had to do some deep thinking. And as I can imagine, it had to have been crushing. I mean, what do we do when we think about the dreams that we have? How often is it that we experience something unexpected? And I mean, let's talk about this pandemic. We didn't expect that to happen either, right? So how many of us may feel like, okay, so what's happened? We've had to pivot the way we do work. We've had to pivot the way we go shopping. We had to pivot the way we just go out to check our mail. And here's this young girl who now has to pivot the way she thinks about her future because her legs are gone. And so she talks about this with a smile on her face, energy in her heart, and such positivity. And you can't just not get excited by listening to her enthusiasm. And she says, I had to think about how obstacles do only one of two things. They either stop us in our tracks and we're done, or it forces us to be creative. And I really started to think about that. And it's so true. I can think of many times where I just stopped in my tracks, or I had to really think on my feet, jump it from the frying pan into the fire and just go forward and think outside the box. And she said, I stopped and I thought to myself, if my life was a book, how would I want my story to end? And I knew I didn't want it to end in this bed. I didn't want it to end in a wheelchair. I didn't want my dreams to no longer exist. And she said she just decided that she was going to figure out one way or another how to make her dream come true. And the fact that she became a bronze medalist is incredible to me. Like, I can't even fathom what she had to go through to actually accomplish that. And so, I listened to her talk about how life doesn't throw us predictable stuff. We couldn't have predicted what we're experiencing right now, And when I heard her say, fear can steal away our present if we let it, I really started to think about it for myself. We know this is all going to be behind us. If I look back on my life, I don't know about you guys, but I look back on my life, I could think of many different times where I thought, like, really? Is this what life is throwing in my direction? Yet I'm still here. So it's true. We get creative, and we do think of ways to be able to go forward, because life changes every day. Wouldn't you agree, Scott? Candy?
Oh, no doubt about that. Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, everything's a fluid situation, pandemic or no pandemic, so whether or not you have last-minute changes in the programming or whether you have certain events that get canceled at the last minute, you just have to be a chameleon, and you have to adjust, and you have to be able to think quick and fast. If you don't, then you're in trouble.
I guess I kind of related, Lynn, to playing baseball. You can be the batter, you step in that batter's box. You have no idea what that pitcher is going to throw, whether it be a curveball, a fastball, a slider, a knuckleball. You have to adapt to what's being thrown at you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you should bring up baseball because, I'm just listening to people who are talking about how they're so excited about watching replays of hockey games and football games and all kinds of other sports because all the sports were canceled. And so imagine all these athletes are also pivoting. 2 weeks ago when we did our first episode of the Me Monday podcast, I mentioned about Trent Shelton, an NFL player who kind of had his career stolen from him just as it was getting started. Well, I recently heard another NFL player on a live broadcast online that was also talking about how he had to pivot his lifestyle because there's no sports being played. They're contact sports, so they're definitely social distancing. So, no matter what we do in our life, there's something different that's going to come up every day and some way that we have to pivot. So that's so true. I love that analogy of the pitcher sending that ball, and you never know what ball is going to come across the plate. And then you never know if you're going to actually make contact with the bat either.
Well, the old thing called curveball, I remember when we were out in Scottsdale, Arizona, I had a guy on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk named Rodgers, and he talked about the slider. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen an individual in my life talk about a specific pitch in the depth that Roger Beeshans went ahead. and talked about it. But when it's a slider or a curveball, regardless, you have to connect it to life. You definitely, that's what we always find ourselves. It's a curveball or a slider, and we just have to make sure we connect properly.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a little positive lining in just about everything, no matter how small it might be, right?
Yep, I'd agree.
Yeah, so you know what? I'd like to ask our listeners at this point if they would be willing to just think of one new thing that they might be able to do tomorrow that can make them smile. And maybe what can they do to make sure that it happens? So for me, what I'm going to do tomorrow, I actually heard Sean T. of Beachbody, and he was giving an inspirational talk, and he said, you know, when we try to think of something in a big way, we tend to not follow through. So keep your goal small and just commit to that small thing. Don't make it bigger. Don't make it smaller. Just keep it the way it is for 14 days. So you know what? I got up this morning and I said, I'm going to start doing a little exercise routine that I used to do that I kind of got out of habit. And I said, I'm going to do that and commit to doing just that, what little it is, for 14 days. And I'm going to stick to it. So when I get up tomorrow, I'm going to do that first thing in the morning, and I'm going to stick to it. And I've committed to that 14 days, and I'm going to have that as a reminder on my calendar. And that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? That movement's going to make me smile, because I could tell you my butt is kind of getting tired of my office chair. So I'd like to ask you both, is there something small that you might be able to do tomorrow that'll make you smile, and what you might do to make sure it happens?
Oh, I'm taking another drive. I don't care about the 14 days thing. I'm a caged lion, for crying out loud. Wow. Okay, well, that's just the way I am. It may not be as long of a drive as it has been the last couple of weeks, but I'll probably get out of the house at some point or another. I will. It's one thing that I've taken Candy to work the last couple of weeks, because she's been, hadn't been feeling up to speed, but she's getting better. But to give me an excuse to get the heck out of the house, there's a good point and a bad point. I've gotten out of the house and she's had to tolerate my cooking, so if she can handle a lot of egg dishes and some of the old miscellaneous delicacies that I'm trying to master, which I'll never figure out any of them in the first place, and she's got a tough stomach, and when she's driving with me, then she has a tablet that's more than out there taking care of my adrenaline rush thing called a speed thing, because everybody talks about Zoom, right? Well, the only way I ever knew Zoom was when I got on the roads and put my foot to the metal and called that thing called a lead foot. So other than Zoom, I don't know. I'm getting the heck out of the house so that I can just go ahead and crazy, and even if it's a 5 or 10 mile drive, I don't care. It is what it is.
Well, there you go. As long as it's going to make you smile, then it's a positive thing. And Candy, do you have something that you might want to do tomorrow that could make you smile?
Lynn, one of the things that I found, and I'll admit I found it a while ago, it's an app for my phone. And I remember back growing up that during sometimes my mom and I would sit down and we'd do jigsaw puzzles. And we would, sometimes my sisters would come in and we'd all do them. And it was just a time where it was quiet time, but yet it was one-on-one time with my mom. And so I found an app that gives me a different daily jigsaw puzzle, and I can choose how many pieces to do the puzzle, whether it be 4 pieces or I can go all the way up to 1,000. But I can even set it for just 100 pieces and just sit and relax and do a puzzle and think of times that I had with my mom, since my mom's no longer here. So it's just kind of relaxing time, and it's a good time for me to reflect on what mattered and what matters now.
That's beautiful, and I really appreciate you sharing that with me, because I can actually feel the warmth in your heart at the thought of that memory. Mm-hmm. So I really do appreciate you sharing that.
Well, what would you expect out of Candy? She's warm in the heart. She's considered legendary in my family. You got a raging bull and a woman that's sweet like Candy, who's a legend. She should have a statue in all the houses back up in Michigan. Her family tolerates my outrageous behavior. My family hasn't been able to figure out 50 some odd years anyway, but bringing in old Candy, oh my goodness. She makes the word legendary in 49 point. Goodness, but yeah, it's okay. She might
there you go.
She might be a permanent staple on this broadcast with us three.
You know what? That would be great because I love the conversation, and so I'd like to just throw out to the listeners that they just heard 3 very small examples of doing something that can make us smile. I'm going to do my little few minutes of exercise in the morning to get myself into that mojo, and you're going to just take a drive because you love to drive, and that's going to make you smile. And Candy's going to do a puzzle, which is going to do 2 things for her. It's going to make her relax, and it's also going to just reignite a wonderful memory that's connected with someone that she loves dearly. So I'd love to ask the audience to think about one little thing that they can do for themselves that will make them smile, and think about what they can do to make sure that happens. And once again, I would really love to ask that the listeners send us an email and share these thoughts with us, because we'd love to discuss them on a future podcast. So southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and absolutely, if you want a little bit more inspiration, just check out my column, Me Monday, on the southfloridatribune.com. And love to hear your questions, love to hear your feedback, love to hear your thoughts.
Candy's got
thanks so much for sharing this with me.
Candy's got this relaxed thing down pat. She has a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers named Aaron Rodgers, and when he went ahead and said relax because the Packers were off to a slow start and told that fan base to relax, now she's incorporated it into her vocabulary, probably saying it to me about 50 million times in one night. But all of a sudden, that thing called selective perception or wax ends up in the ears. I probably tend to forget it 9 million times over. But Aaron Rodgers, Candy, relax, whatever.
RELAX.
That's it.
Oh, my goodness. So, are there any upcoming podcasts that we need to highlight tonight that are coming up on the South Florida Tribune?
Not right now. We're still a little bit incomplete with the lineup that we have. I do know that we do have a sports exchange coming up on Thursday. We're planning to do it with Xavier McKnight and Ryan Skolrud. These 2 guys, we had a great broadcast on Thursday ahead of the NFL draft. I'm also looking at another sports exchange. Probably the most likely guest will be Rick Curdy and somebody to be determined. I'm leaning toward Belfar. We'll see. But right now it's a little bit too early. But the one that I can probably tell you right now that I'm really strongly, heavily considering is our one on Thursday. Ryan Skolrud does fantasy football. Xavier McKnight is one of my young guys who I met a couple of years ago at a Miami Hurricanes game, and he was a sports information director for Savannah State. And he watched a 77-0 blowout at Miami, but I found myself a kid who to me is unbelievable. So the one I guess I'd like to promote in advance right now would be the Sports Exchange on Thursday with Xavier McKnight, myself, and Ryan Skolrud. These 2 guys are studs.
That sounds amazing. I'm so excited that you're keeping sports alive for all of us while we can't actually go to games or continue with our teams, because I know I'm missing out on my team in hockey. So thank you so much for keeping the Sports Exchange alive through all of this and just bringing sports to everybody in a different way. Well, really appreciate that.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that over the weekend, the NFL had 55 million people watching the draft, an all-time record. That, to me, is unbelievable. So you want to talk about...
That's crazy.
Oh, well, it is, but it was unbelievable. And they did a good job under the virtual setup. And I'll tell you what, I practically watched the whole thing. It was just unreal. But then again, me being an NFL guy, would you expect anything less? So yeah, this is when I have an opportunity to get resourceful and talk about different things and try to keep it interesting. So we got a lot of good things that we're working on for sure, and we'll definitely keep them posted every week here on the South Florida Tribune podcast, because this is a broadcast. I like to use the word broadcast because I'm old school. That sets the table for what we're going to be doing the rest of the week.
I think that's fantastic, and you know what you're talking about with what you're doing about getting on this virtual platform to share all these different things. It's just a great sign of the times and the kind of pivoting that everybody's having to do through all this, and it's a great example of taking an obstacle that may have come in our way and turning it into an opportunity. So, Scott, I want to thank you for being a great example and giving both of us an opportunity to share this with the listeners.
You're very welcome, Lynn. We look forward to another edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast next Monday, and I'll tell you what, you can expect Candy to be on more of these broadcasts. She's done a great job with her first act, and I can see Candy getting involved. I think the three of us make a phenomenal team for sure, and look forward to seeing it build as time goes on. But this certainly was a great opportunity for us to go out there and talk and highlight your column, and we appreciate the consistency and the dependability for which you send it on a regular basis. Thank you, Lynn LaSalle. Make sure that you share this amongst our members in the Coral Springs Chamber of Commerce. I know that they respect you heavily there, and any other place that you can go ahead and advertise it. So any closing thoughts?
Absolutely will.
Any closing thoughts, how people can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. If they want to check on the southfloridatribune.com, you can definitely find all my contact information there. You can email me at lynn@itswhy.com, and that's ITZWHY.com. And I look forward to hearing any questions, comments, or requests for topics. And I look forward to speaking with both you and Candy again.
The same here, Lynn.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll have to admit, since I'm the person that puts all the content up on the South Florida Tribune, that I enjoy immensely. I wait for your column on Sundays at times, so then I can sit and I can read it and I can digest it before I put it up on the Tribune. It always gets me thinking and gets me thinking about things I can do for myself, and so I really appreciate that, Lynn.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the feedback, because the whole goal was to give everyone a day to look forward to, and it sounds like you look forward to Mondays now.
Which is something I never used to, Lynn.
Well, like I said, when we began all of this, I always said TBIM, too bad it's Monday. But boy, you want to talk about changing opinions. You indeed have turned the needle in that sense. But yeah, it's definitely an uplifting opportunity for the beginning of the week. So, Lynn, keep up the good work, and we'll be back here on the South Florida Tribune podcast a week from tonight on Monday. So on behalf of Lynn LaSalle, Candy Ebley, my name is Scott Morgan Roth, the Motor City Mad Mouse, saying good night, everybody. Catch you next time.